We are turning to hurling in the meantime because we have our semi-final lineup. It will be Limerick against Galway on Saturday week and Clare against Kilkenny on Sunday week. That's because yesterday Galway were 120 to 118 winners against Tipperary, and also at the Gael Grounds it was a double header. Clare 526 to Dublin's 217. Happy to bring in Mr. Tommy Walsh. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Joe.
Have I dragged you away from watching the football, or are you not too concerned with that kind of business?
No, I was given out because this is at 4 o'clock. I thought that match was at 4 o'clock. Devastated now. I could have been watching it the last half an hour, but we were at a blitz over, an underage blitz over in Johnstown all morning, Joe. So I was only back. I genuinely thought the match was at 4, and I was there. Should have done this later or earlier.
Sorry.
I love it. I do love watching the football as well.
Do you?
Especially Mayo. Like, I think everyone enjoys watching Mayo and seeing can they do it.
Well, listen, I'll make a deal with you. I'll give you the last 10 minutes, okay? I won't keep you too long. How's that?
Great.
So Galway 120, Tipperary 118. I have to say, I thought Galway were in trouble, just the manner and the disappointment of the way they lost that Leinster final in those dying moments to Kilkenny. And also I had a sense that while Tipperary made a good show early on in Munster, maybe a bit of fatigue cost them against Waterford, but geez, they'd be spitting about missing out on a Munster final and they'll be waiting in the long grass stewing in that one. And I thought, well, Galway could be in trouble here. But if anyone was flat, Tom, it was Tip.
Yeah, and it was definitely 100% on that, Joe. I think the big worry coming into the game for Galway was, would it be so devastated after the Leinster final? They really went forward. They wanted to win the Leinster championship, and it was lost in such a devastating fashion. I was talking to more, there's people talking about that Leinster final the last couple of weeks and saying, why didn't they kick it out for a 65? Why didn't they kick it out over a line? But if I was over that team, that'd be the last thing you do, because you're giving them a set piece to try and manufacture a goal. I would say that ball was in the safest place it possibly could have been in Croke Park for in that last couple of seconds. But just luck went against them, and that happens in golf, it happens in hurling, it happens in Gaelic football, and just the luck, I think, ran out for them that day. And could they recover from that? Because I often felt playing myself, the worst match you could ever kind of try and focus on is the one where you're after playing really well in the one previous, but getting beaten. Because everyone's coming out and clapping you on the back, telling you played well and you're unlucky. So you don't even have the devastation of, kind of being angry with yourself for not performing. Because I think that's when you're so, ready and tuned for the next game, and you feel so disappointed with your own performance. So I think that was the danger for Galway going into this game. But possibly, as everybody learned from Clare last year, including Clare themselves, that they gave everything to that Munster final in an absolute cracker, a Munster final of all Munster finals. And Tony Kelly scored a sideline, would you believe, in the last puck of the game to draw a Munster final. Narrowly were beaten and went flat for the rest of the year. So I'm wondering, did Galway reference that Clare performance then in the match against Wexford after that in the Kilkenny semi-final and say, listen lads, we have to learn from this. Leinster Munster is over, provincial championships is over, this is the All-Ireland series. And it did look like that, because they looked defiant from minute one. I was trying to scribble down a couple of notes watching the game, Joe, to be ready for you today, and Joseph Cooney, after a couple of seconds, was just putting in hits, getting on the ball, winning the ball, and it was just a performance where we're going to leave no stone unturned today. And it was from the first second. But then I would add in, after listening to Henry's interview after the game, what he said, it was simple enough, but he said Tipperary are scoring goals all year for fun, and especially in the last game against Offaly, the score was at 7, nearly 40. You're wondering, would they hit the 40 the point bracket? And he said, we're going to stop the free flow and we're going to turn it into a battle. And I know they're simple terms, but it takes tactics as well, because you can't just say it with no plan. They obviously had a plan with Cottle Mannion going back, and they turned that match into a battle and gave Callanan, Mark in the corner, they gave him absolutely no space whatsoever. Jake Morris, when they got the ball, there was 3 or 4 lads on him.
Yeah,
and I think
Callanan felt isolated, didn't he?
He did, and he doesn't have the pace of old.
No.
And, he needs to be, I would nearly say, when you come to that stage of your career, you're coming on as an impact sub. When the other lads are getting tired, you come on with your experience and your craft and your guile. But when the game was in the heat of battle in the first 20 minutes with no space, it was a hard place to play.
I should tell people Mayo have scored a crucial goal in Salt Hill, so they're all square. Galway 8 points, Mayo 1-5 is where we are, all square after 45 minutes in Salt Hill. So
they don't do it easy way, do they, Joe?
There'll be a few more twists and turns yet, I suspect. So all square on 45 minutes is where we are, Tom. I thought, watching the first half, I was disappointed in the standard. Now maybe I've been spoiled by too many great days in Munster this year in the sunshine. I know conditions weren't perfect in Limerick, but I thought there was a fair bit of aimless ball, and Anthony Daly said as much as well. Like a couple of times where lads missed striking it or just find an opposition man, and Galway would give it straight to Noel McGrath and he'd have a wide from distance, and same pattern a few minutes later. Look, I'm sure it's tense and it's one of those, these things can happen, but like, you wouldn't say it was two teams tearing each other apart in that first half in brilliant fashion. Conor Whelan kind of came into it as the half went on for Galway. Yeah,
a few great individual performances. Like Conor Whelan, as you said, came into it. Even, for Tipperary, you'd be saying Ronan Maher, I thought it was exceptional. But I understand what you're saying, and it probably goes back to the way the two teams set out. They normally do play the traditional hurling where, their first probably, protocol is get the ball as fast as they can into the full forward line.
Yeah. And
then when you have the modern way of playing, which Galway had, Cottle Mannion sitting back, Tipperary and a couple of lads sitting back. So, you see, looking from the stands, it's very easy to say, why did they hit the ball, down to that corner? But if you go back to the right after half time, the Galway boys got the ball, they pelted it first time down, fast ball, it turned out then Whelan was in the zone, Cathal Barrett slipped, goal. The opposite of that then is in the first half when they were hitting in ball and there was a spare Galway or a spare Tipperary lad coming out of it. The problem there, Joe, is we can see it from the panoramic view of a television or up in the stand.
Yeah.
When you're hurling yourself, if you get the ball in the full back line or the half back line, especially with the fitness and the toughness and the sense of tackling that every team has now, you have a second, you have a half a second, a millisecond. You don't have time to look up, get that view that where is the spare man. A lot of time you're hitting it just out, you just don't want to lose the ball in defence. So I'd say for two teams that predominantly hit it long, that was the mistake. That's what led to the mistakes of ball going straight to spare man. The opposite side of that is if you have your Watfords and your Limericks who like coming out with the ball, transition the ball through they're just used to doing that, so they never hit the long balls in. So that's just was the way the tactics run. But not everybody can do that. Like you look at Tipperary last year, they tried to do that ball out through the transition, out through the middle. It didn't work for them. Liam Cahill's teams generally go this way, and I think hurling is slowly going back to, it's probably a hybrid version of the short game. It's a bit of both, but definitely hurling this year, I felt, went back towards long ball. You're asking about the Munster Championship, then, Joe. See, what happened in the Munster Championship is Limerick defenders were so good with the ball. Watford and especially Clare, they pushed up on him. So when you hit the long balls against the Limerick defence for them, they didn't have spare men back.
Yeah.
That was the difference between the Munster Championship, I think, and the games yesterday. The other one is tension. So no matter, I know they were kind of knockout games, but they weren't really the Munster or Leinster Championship. Yesterday was knockout.
Yes.
So nerves, tension, you kind of die on your, die on your sword, and that's the way the game was, and it's not going to be free flowing when you have that going on.
I think absolutely on the tension point, because for both sides it was season defining. Whoever loses now, it's a miserable season, and whoever wins, geez, that puts a real sheen on it. Whelan was great for Galway. Like first half, brilliant, and then kept it going in the second half. That's the second man of the match now, I think, of the year. Not many players get moved off Cathal Barrett, but Cathal, listen, we'll give someone else a go. He's a tough man to mark, Whelan. He's fast, great movement, he can turn sharp, like he'd no fun, Tommy.
No fun, and I think it's amazing how a change is as good as a rest, Joe. Sometimes, like even Conor Cooney was, he hadn't been hurling the way he can hurl, went off, and he didn't start yesterday, but coming on last couple of minutes, I thought, look back to Conor Cooney of himself. Well, the same thing goes with Conor Whelan. Instead of taking him off, I suppose the last day, like he was took off in one of the earlier matches against Kilkenny, Conor Whelan, but say that match against, say last week in the Leinster final, against Kilkenny, they put him out in the wing. And it just gave him a new lease of life.
Yeah.
And you think Conor Whelan's always a full man. But he was out there and he was able to break onto a few balls, and suddenly his game kept, it just turned around for him. Yesterday then he was just playing like a player full of confidence. And he's probably, Jackie Tyrrell up on the wall as well, trying to, the one trick pony. And, go back to Kieran Donaghy when Joe Brawley, what do you think of that, Joe Brawley?
I thought you boys didn't pay any heed to what's in the press, though, Tommy. Well, it turns out you do.
Yeah, well, someone had mentioned it, yeah. You don't read papers. I never read papers, and we were always told not to read papers. If there were one player, when I was starting at Kilkenny in 2002, Brian said to us, and this is kind of the start, I suppose, the media, nobody's to read papers, no one's to go out until after the All-Ireland or whenever we're finished, Next round in, and one of the older players was 33 or 34, up the front of the bus. Big Sunday Tribune or something. So I listened, I think, like Jack Grealish, I suppose, after winning the Champions League or the treble, you just do what you do and, make no apologies for it. And it's sometimes isn't that great to watch too. But papers, did we? No, never read them. But by God, someone would say it to you.
I'm sure.
Someone would say it to you. I'm sure someone has said that to Conor Whelan. You can't beat that bit of bitterness or that bit of toughness where you have a point to prove. It really is, and I thought Galway just showed that yesterday, as you said. It was just all on the line like yesterday, and it gives you that extra 5 or 10%. And I know we love, and I'm kind of halfway, I suppose, middle of the road on it, between hunger, toughness, work rate, and then the game plan, skill, and all that. So there's a place for all of it in a game. It's like when you're building a house, you have the foundation, but then you also have the stairs and the roof and all that. So there's a place for everything on a hurling field. But I think yesterday, when two teams are equal, when a team wins by 2 points, hunger plays a huge part. I just saw Joseph Cooney. I was so happy for him. He's been doing it all year, and yesterday, both attacking and defending, and he made an incredible block in the second half. Just magic to watch in the Whitey battle, when hurling is at its best. You often hear about a guy, he's a big game player, Joe.
Yeah.
I always think them lads. I bet you Joseph Cooney's a big game player in training in February.
Yeah.
And that's why he's able to produce it on the day.
Tom, stay with us. Let's go to Salt Hill, because James Horan, 53 minutes on the clock. Mayo are ahead by a point all of a sudden. 2 points, in fact.
Yeah, it's been all Mayo in the second half. They're attacking again. Paddy Durkin has another shot, just gone over the bar, so we'll go 3 points up. Yeah, Jamie Coleman went off at half time. Enda Hession came on for Mayo. Cillian O'Connor came on a couple of minutes ago on his first touch, kicked it over the bar to add to the momentum. So it's been all Mayo. Galway struggling on the kick-outs. They have a couple of set plays that they're trying, running from a cluster, but can't get a short kick-out option, and it's going long, and Mayo are really hoovering up. There was a big moment at the start of the second half where Peter Cook looked like he was through, and it was a good Galway attack, and Jim O'Connor turned him over down on the 14-yard line defending, and within the same attack, Diarmuid was the man that was fouled on the other 14-yard line. He ran the length of the field, got on the shoulder, took the ball and won the free. It was a huge play in the game. It sort of rattled Galway, who look a little bit lacking leadership at the moment, and it gave Mayo a huge boost. So it's all Mayo at the moment, and 3 points up.
Okay, I just saw the tail end of the goal, by the way. It looked like a great finish.
Yeah, Dave McBreen, he was on about the 45-yard line and looked up at goals and was thinking of a shot on goal for a point, but didn't fancy it, so he soloed through, did a one-on-one with Aidan O'Shea and really finished it, gave the keeper the eyes and put him the wrong way and buried in the back of there for a great goal. So just to have a score there for Galway from Paul Conroy, it brings it back to a 2-point game.
Okay, very good. Thanks for the time being. James Horan in Salt Hill. So Mayo leading by 2. Tommy Walsh is still with us. And another thought, by the way, on the hurling yesterday, Tom, and Joe Canning said it at full time on the TV, and I found myself really agreeing with it, is that Galway made hard work of that. Like, they should have actually won by more. They missed a great goal chance, and he found himself saying, look, delighted that Galway won and it's great, but I got this nagging sense, like with Limerick on the horizon at the same time, they should have been out of sight against Tipperary yesterday.
Yeah, they should have. They had a couple of goal chances, like Conor Whelan in that first half. He was straight through. If he had to take it on another 3 yards, like remember Donal O'Grady was over Cork, he was over Limerick then a couple of years later, and I remember seeing him over in a Chicago trip. He was with must be in the Munster contingent, I suppose, but he used to get the guys to bring it in nearly to the square and bat it in.
Yeah.
And so simple but so effective. And I think, with Conor Whelan yesterday, he could have brought it in an extra 3 or 4 yards and it was a goal. And instead he took the chance. And in fairness to Reece, it was a great save, and he is known in Tipperary as a great shot stopper. I thought in the second half then Keenan Fahy had a super game. He's a ball winner. And I thought he had a great chance. If he had took it forward another 3 or 4 steps, it was a goal. And I thought definitely before half time, Galway, they missed a couple of great chances. And it looked like even Clare against Limerick, they missed a couple of chances, or they're going to rue these misses. When you're the underdog, I suppose, and Galway were probably the underdogs yesterday, you need all these chances. So you're 100% with Joe. And that's like Joe and all them great lads like Shamie Callanan and the top Cian Lynch and all these lads. They do see the game in simple terms, and they see probably that bit faster than everybody else. So when they say things, you do take notice. But I was looking at the Galway team, Joe, versus the Tipperary team afterwards, and they win by 2 points, but it was hard to pick out Tipperary lads that hurled out their skin. I'd say Reece on the goal, Ronan Maher and Alan Tynan tried fierce hard. But for Galway, the stars, I thought their half backline were incredible. Parg Mannion, Dahi Burke and Joseph Cooney. Cottle Mannion was brilliant. Sean Lennon is a tough man out middle of the field. He's able to mix it. Up front then, I thought Tom Monaghan, their subs were actually great when they came on, and Conor Whelan. Tom Monaghan was brilliant. He had 3 or 4 points when he came on, and it just goes to show the importance of having good subs. We thought Limerick for all the years, the David Reedy's and all Graham Mulcahy's coming on, won him a lot of matches. So for yesterday, I thought Galway subs did come on and played an important role, and seems to be the story of the year so far. Galway subs coming on and having important roles. But to beat Limerick, Joe is right. They're going to have to score. There was a huge amount of, you said talking about the standard in yesterday's match, especially the first half. There was a huge amount of misses, huge amount of wides. So they will definitely have to work on that, because I think if you go back to John Kiley in the earlier rounds for Limerick, what was affecting them, he used to say in his interviews after, was their efficiencies. And they were striking a lot of wides. So I think to beat Limerick, you need to score probably a goal at the right time with maybe 3 minutes to go, and I suppose hopefully score all your shots.
So our semi-final lineup is very intriguing. A repeat of last year, Limerick-Galway on the Saturday, and then Clare-Kilkenny on the Sunday. I suppose if you're looking for some kind of improvement from Galway, last night against Tip, they're trying to get over the Leinster final defeat. There's a real pressure on both sides. Whoever loses this, as we said, their season is massively disappointing. Whereas Galway can kind of look at semi-final, Croke Park against Limerick, shot to nothing. We weren't a million miles away last year, within 3 points. Like, it is a totally different psychology now to no pressure. If we're beaten by Limerick and give it a decent rattle, then it's been a fine season. That changes the whole build-up, I'm sure, massively, Tom, for Galway against Limerick.
It does. It's probably pressure off to a certain extent, but imagine the opportunity that is there to knock out the team going for 4 in a row, their neighbours, Limerick, the team that beat them in 2018 All-Ireland final. There's such huge amount, I think, on the line. Like, I never see these matches as a shot at nothing or a free punch.
No, that's too different. But it just, I'm almost kind of exaggerating to show it's very different to what yesterday was for Galway.
No, definitely. Like, if Galway lost yesterday, absolutely, Joe, was a disaster. A disaster. Really, it was a disaster, because the Leinster final won, and then to lose yesterday, you go out, the Galway races and all that. But I'd say the Galway people, what they're most enthused about and encouraged by is that this Galway team doesn't go away ever. For the last 3 or 4 years, there's always only a puck of a ball in it, and that's why I'd give them a chance against this Limerick team. Now, for them to win, Joe, I think Limerick are so strong and physical and tall and big. They're going to have to move the ball fast. They can't really get this into a physical battle. Concannon, Nyland, all these lads up front, they're going to have to run around and move the ball fast and move themselves fast and strike. They're going, Tom Monaghan and Ronan Glenn, these lads, Keenan Fahy from out the field, they're going to have their shooting boots on. What'll give them a chance is their back line. So Gillan is probably the form hurler in the country at the moment. If you're a big hurler of the year now, it's Aaron Gillan.
Yeah.
Dave Garrod, McInerney. I think we've seen that for Clare. Clare, when Conor Cleary wasn't playing, they didn't have a player to physically put up to Gillan. because Glenn will shove you around the place. Brilliant in the air, brilliant on the ground. You need to be able to stand toe with him and go for it. And I think Dave Garrod McInerney, who was taken off yesterday, he got caught for the goal that John McGrath scored. So he'll have that bit of grit between his teeth. He has the experience of performing on big days, so there's no worry about that. And Gillan, while he's fast, he's more powerful than, a rocket. So I think McInerney, that'll be a great battle. I'd rather see Galway leave Pádraig Mannion out in the half line, because if you have a half back line that's going well, the ball, first of all, doesn't go in as much, and second of all, they're the launch pad to the likes of Conor Whelan and Cathal Mannion and Keenan Fatty and all these. So I think they're going to have to step it up on their players. They cannot fall into the trap, I believe myself, of Mannion. If you go back to last year's semi-final, I think Mannion as well went back, like yesterday, for a lot of that game, first 20 minutes. They only came back into the game when Mannion pushed up. Why? Because you can't give that Limerick defenders ball to play around with. So for Galway to win the semi-final, I think they have to go for it. And it'll be high risk, but I think they will have to go for it and trust their backs.
And lastly then, because I promised you I'd get to the last 10 minutes of the football, Tom, we're going to do it. Clare Kilkenny blew Clare out of the water last year. So this time around, I don't suspect that's going to happen again.
Yeah, and worryingly for Clare though, John Conley went off injured, so hopefully that's not concussion, hopefully he's grand. I thought myself he didn't look too bad going off. So David McInerney, I'm not sure what was wrong with him yesterday. He doesn't strike me as a player that would miss a game like that unless he was injured. So they only have 2 weeks to come back. Why do Clare have a chance? They're brilliant forwards. So Tony Kelly was held last year by Mikey Butler. You'd imagine the same thing will happen again as regards Mikey will be given a man-marking role. Yeah. But this is where the likes Aaron Shanahan, Shane O'Donnell scored 1-2 yesterday. Mark Rogers scored 1-11, probably 1-6 or 7 from play. So the other forwards are after stepping up, and they do not have the hangover from the Munster final yesterday. And I definitely think that was a huge, probably psychological preparation that Lohan probably prepared the guys for yesterday. Straight away, Tony Kelly was talking about, we learned from last year. We're a different team this year. We're looking forward. So for them reasons, I give Clare a great chance going into the semi-final. For Kilkenny, Kilkenny in a semi-final, they have the forwards, they have the players, so you can't write them off.
No, you certainly can't. We'll talk about that in a lot more detail, obviously, the week of the matches. Tom, we'll let you go. You get the last 10 minutes of the football now. What more can I do for you? Thanks a million.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Come on, Tommy Walsh with us, and our hurling coverage on Off the Ball with thanks to Bord Gáis. And Off the Ball has teamed up with Bord Gáis as well to uncover stories highlighting the positive impact hurling has had in people's lives. For full competition details, you can visit bordgaisenergy.ie/BGE GAA. That is the website to visit. Tommy Walsh with us there.